What up, everybody? This is Dario Hunt from Live Life Fearless. Welcome back to another episode of the Fearless Show podcast. Today's date is June 7th, 2019. With me today is Mr. Doris Walker. Say hello to everybody.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fearless Show. Thank you. And with us is a reoccurring guest. Please introduce yourself.
Steven Silver, how are you?
Doing great. Glad that you're back with us to chop it up about, all the things that you love, television and movies.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, always good to have you on here. So, like I said, we're going to talk about our main topic, TV series, and what we consider some of the greatest TV series to have ever come out. And we're going to try to come up with a sort of consensus list, from everything that we personally have, and then kind of come up with something like that for LLF as a whole. We decided to do this especially since Game of Thrones just ended. But before we get into all that, of course, we're going to do our usual housekeeping and everything. If you're liking these podcasts and you're enjoying them, and we see a lot of your comments, please like and subscribe wherever you guys listen to us or watch us, either on YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Music, our website, wherever. And if you like any to get rocking these videos, like the shirt that I'm wearing here or the shirt that Doris is wearing, you can also grab some from the official website. We have a lot of stuff coming out this summer. And we're doing a 35% off sale all summer on everything in the store to kind of thank you guys for, helping us get record numbers for the past straight 10 months. So it's been a pretty good run. So I'm going to keep that going.
Yeah. Thank you for your support, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If it's your first time listening, we appreciate you. And if it's not your first time, we appreciate your, continued support.
All right.
Yep. And before we get into our main topic, we are going to get into some news. And to start things off, I don't know how big of gamers you guys are, but E3 is right around the corner.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a big gamer anymore, but I've heard the buzz a little bit. I don't know too much, though.
I'm not a gamer, but my kids are starting to get into it. We got them a PS4 last year, so I'm starting to become aware of the gaming world in a way that I kind of sat on the sidelines of it for a very long time. I mean, I spent a lot of time. I covered consumer electronics for almost 10 years, and I was always writing about the business side of electronics, and I went to electronic shows where Sony would be there and Nintendo would be there, but I just never played the games myself. So it's kind of interesting to get back into that and see, I wouldn't have been aware of Fortnite if I didn't have kids who played it. So
gaming culture is absolutely massive now, and I grew up like a big time gamer, so I was always up on all the latest stuff and E3 and all that. So I'm bringing up E3 because specifically, there's been rumors, and this was a news article on our website. If you want to see the full thing, you can go and head over there and read it. But there's some rumors and kind of hearsay going about that Netflix is possibly preparing to actually take the plunge into gaming itself.
Yeah, I heard some things about that. I'm not exactly sure how it would work. Is it like a thing where if you're a Netflix subscriber, you get access to certain games? Is it a thing where is it Netflix just throwing money at creators like they do with everything else? Is that the plan for them?
I mean, they're definitely throwing money.
I don't know.
Around.
Well, if you think about it, you can access Netflix on all the gaming platforms. So
yeah,
I mean, I feel like that could be something interesting for them to, go into for sure.
Well, since you guys aren't the biggest gamers, I will just inform you that there is a Google game system that is coming out. They just announced it this year called the Google Stadia. And the big thing about that and why it's such a big deal is that they're betting big time on streaming games specifically. So there's no console. You're just streaming everything through their servers on the back end. Mm-hmm. And this is why the rumor is that Netflix is also planning on doing that because they have a big, obviously, streaming platform and everything about them is streaming. So it only would make sense for them to also try to hop into that kind of gaming lane where they would add that, I'm sure, on top of their movie thing to, so you can stream directly to whatever kind of box and controller you have set up in your house. Right. Obviously, the big issue there is internet and how strong your internet is, because streaming games is a lot different than streaming a video or anything else. So it's very intensive.
Oh, yeah.
It's not clear if that's going to be like successful, especially I don't think right away, but I think it's inevitable that everything's just going to be streamed at some point. So,
well, it's just Silicon Valley taking over everything. They're getting into everything they weren't in already. They're getting into they're getting into Hollywood. They're getting into just all these businesses that they weren't in before, and they can do it because they have enough money and they can invest in what they want to invest in, and that's just. I'm not saying Google won't be good at this, because there's a chance they will be, but it's just. It's like every year, all like Google, Apple, Amazon, they're all going into more and more sectors that they weren't in before.
Oh yeah. They're picking out every industry. It's like
I'm a little skeptical.
Google car, it's gonna be Google, everything.
I'm a little skeptical because Google does have a lot of failures also in their record, and not actually finishing things or like seeing things to completion. But I think this, if nothing else, it's going to push the actual game industry even further, because there's like a real threat now where anybody can basically buy a controller without needing to set up a system, as long as they have decent internet and play.
Soldier boy.
So, it was just interesting, and it's definitely going to change the landscape of things significantly, I think, in the way that Netflix completely changed movies.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's interesting.
Well, one thing, if Netflix ends up getting anime, one thing with Netflix is they have such a large footprint of subscribers that they can. They're in those people's eyeballs already.
That's what I'm saying.
So they're already logging in. They're already doing it. So they may.
Hey, you already have Netflix.
Yeah.
You want the game part 2? Pay a little bit more, and you have access to all these games. And I'm sure the games would probably make them way more money than the movies are.
Hell yeah, especially if they like bought some like other games or like got rights to like a new like release. Like if like a new Assassin's Creed came out only through Netflix or some shit.
I think they need to do something, because I have a hard time seeing how they're going to continue at this pace.
Oh, Disney's going to wipe them out unless they have, like, another thing.
They're spending absurd amount of money, and I'm sure you're making a lot of money off subscribers, but I think that's a finite kind of, pool of money you're going to be getting.
Hulu has a better business model, because they have subscribers as well, and they're growing a lot of subscribers, but even paid subscribers who only pay, like, a partial, like the lower payment, still have paid commercials. So they have commercials that they're getting profit from that Netflix doesn't have.
Netflix does not do that. That's what I have a hard time seeing where they're making money.
Yeah, I signed up for Hulu this year.
Yeah, no, I was proving your point, yeah.
I didn't have Hulu for years. I just signed up for it because I got offered a deal where it was like $12 for the whole year for the version with ads.
Right.
It's like watching TV because you have ads. It's not like watching Netflix.
Right.
But you can watch. I didn't watch Handmaid's Tale until now, and now I'm watching Handmaid's Tale. So, it's the trade-off of being able to have access to everything.
Yeah, no, there's definitely. I've discovered.
I'll say I've watched a lot of Netflix, and I've never had a single Netflix account, which is also a problem Netflix has. So.
That's true. I feel like they.
I'm logged in from like 4 X's ago, I think. So.
There you go. I've been a Netflix subscriber since around probably year 2000 when I signed up for the discs, and it was maybe I'm just a sucker that I've been paid for all this time, but it's really kind of unbelievable.
Somebody has to pay for it, so 3-4 other people can hop on. That's how it works.
Exactly. The model works for them, and they make money. Well, I don't know how much money they make, but.
That's right. They don't really release that info, so I don't know.
Well, they release earnings. They don't release the numbers of how much people stream certain things. But there's a lot. It's a gift and a curse with Netflix, because on the one hand, they make a lot of stuff possible that wouldn't be possible otherwise. There's dozens of documentaries every year that exist because Netflix
for sure TV shows
they're right on your TV. They're at a film festival, and then the next week they're on your TV because of Netflix. And stuff like Orson Welles' film that got finished, and like Scorsese's new movie that might not have gotten funding, and Roma. There's all this stuff that Netflix is making possible, and you can just The fact you can just turn on your TV and there's a million things there, it's great. But the curse of it is that there's very little there that's old. There's very little there that's from like before 1980, and there's a lot of just film history that is just not there. And they've tried to come up with models. Like there was Filmstruck, which is a streaming service that went out of business last year, which had all old movies. And I admit I'm part of the problem because I didn't never subscribe to Filmstruck. I probably should have, but I mean, that's happened a lot with streaming services.
No.
Yeah. I mean, that's happened with a lot of streaming services that have gone out of business. It's like
getting more and more fragmented.
Yeah, that's true.
With Disney basically taking their own ball and building their own service, it's even more trouble for Netflix because they're losing that again. You know, are you going to keep paying $100 million for Friends in the Office? You know, like
what? Well, yeah, that's interesting. And I just filed a piece about Friends that you're going to see that touches on that. But I think that I don't know that Disney is going to kill Netflix with Disney Plus because I think most people are probably going to pay for both. I don't think people are going to say, well, Disney Plus is here now, so I don't need Netflix anymore. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. It might hurt, other streaming services. Like there's all these other ones coming. Like there's going to be the Apple one. There's going to be the Warner Brothers one, which there's like a bundle with the Warner Brothers one. Where
Amazon alone is struggling
and
to
Amazon
even, be relevant. And they have actually good
Amazon
content.
Prime has always struggled. They're trash.
They actually have good content. They're not trash. I'm gonna be honest. Like, they actually
Fleabag.
I love.
Oh no, they have a few good things. They just don't produce as quickly. Like Netflix, they can't keep up with the Netflix turnover.
Yeah, but they can't. They can't compete with Netflix on sheer volume, which really anyone can do. But do you guys know about Fleabag? The show Fleabag.
Yeah,
it's on Amazon. It's interesting because like people I know who are like journalists and critics all are just obsessed with Fleabag. And I put it to like my Facebook friends last week. I asked just like, people who aren't writers, are you familiar with the show?
Nobody knows it.
And most of them have never heard of it. It's really interesting because it's like
the problem with Amazon is nobody knows they have these shows, but they actually have good shows. Like Man in the High Castle is a great show, and what's the Marvelous Miss Maisel? That's another one.
Well, that one kind of broke through. That one, I think,
a little bit. A little bit.
I heard about that one. That one actually I've heard of.
I interviewed Kevin Pollak a few months ago. He was the actor comedian who was on that show, and I asked him about it. He's just like, this is like I've never been part of anything in my career that people have been so obsessed with. Like he said that he thought, it's a very Jewish show. He thought Jewish people would like it. I mean, I'm Jewish and I relate to certain things, but he's like, I went to like, what country was he talking about? He went to some country like in India, I think it was, where, they've never met a Jewish person and they love it. So it's,
good shows.
So that show in particular really broke through, and I think Transparent did to a certain extent when that first started. But I think, and I don't know the subscriber numbers. I assume Netflix has more than anyone else, and I imagine Disney Plus will probably be successful just on the sheer volume of everything they have.
It's strange though because Amazon Prime literally, everybody I know pretty much has it, and it's like they don't even know that they have that service on top of it, but they have Amazon Prime. Like you don't have to pay for it again.
They're like, I have Amazon Prime.
I literally had it because I had Amazon Prime because I wanted 2 day and free shipping, and then get all that on top of it. But people still don't even really know it's there. It's just weird.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it's going to end up being that there's 7 or 8 streaming services that you have to subscribe to get all the stuff you want. And it's going to end up costing you about what cable costs now.
The same thing as cable.
That's the way it's going, and that's how everyone knows it's going to be. Hey, there's never going to be completely a la carte. There's never going to be consumer friendly. That's just it's going to be bundled, and that's just how it's.
I'm not an advocate of pirating, but I'm just saying there are a lot of alternative options to get everything you want. Like so.
For sure.
Instead of subscribing to 30 things.
We'll see.
Yeah. But so we'll move on from that. There's another news article I saw that Barack and Michelle Obama are still out here making lucrative post-presidential deals, and they just inked the new deal with Spotify to do a podcast.
Stop it.
Yes.
Wait, is it that they're going to host it themselves, or that they're going to produce podcasts? Which, I didn't see the story. I just saw the headline.
They are going to develop, produce, and lend their voices to select podcasts.
Oh, well, wow. I'm all for that. I would listen to that for sure. I would, if Obama did a weekly podcast where he told a story every an hour a week about his presidency, I'm all for that, and it would be hugely popular. I'm sure. I don't know if that's what it's going to be. I think. I mean, I've heard him interviewed on podcasts. He was interviewed by Mark Maron when he was still president, and I think he went on David Axelrod's podcast because Axelrod was his advisor, and that was really good too. I mean, he's the
greatest podcast between two ferns. Well, not podcast, but interview.
That's right, he did that.
The greatest between two ferns is crazy. That's hilarious. I can't believe you said that.
Greatest interview he's done. So it doesn't really specifically say all the details of what they're doing, but this new deal on top with Spotify, which I'm sure is quite a lot of money, on top of the deal they just did with Netflix for TV and film kind of production. Thanks. It's like, it's being president can be quite lucrative after you're out of the office. And I think even with Trump in office, I think it's even better for their wallet these days. Yeah. You know?
Well, I think I mean, it's something that came up a little bit when Obama was president, that he wasn't really, he didn't really ever make money until a couple years before he ran because he wrote a book that was successful.
Yeah.
I mean, he was kind of like, he said he had student loans until a couple years before he became president. And I mean, if he wants to make some money now, that's great. I mean, I'd rather he make Netflix shows and Spotify things than, go speak at Goldman Sachs for $100,000. I mean, that I would feel kind of bad about. But I mean, he's going to write a book. I think I read that his book is delayed till next year, but I'm going to read his book, and his book's going to be super best-selling. And
Michelle's book was fucking gangbusters when it dropped. Everybody was talking about it. So
that's true. Well, there was a moment with that I read about where Obama came to one of the NBA Finals games. I think it was Game 1 in Toronto.
Yeah,
Game
2.
Or it was Game 2. Yeah. Well, so there was a story that he went up to a woman named Ramona Shelburne, who's an NBA writer for ESPN.com, and he went up to her and said something like, "Hey, I really liked your article last week," and I just really miss the feeling of knowing that we have a president who when there's a 10,000 word article on ESPN.com about the Lakers turmoil and Magic Johnson, just knowing that the president read that article, that made me feel good knowing we had a president like that. And I know we certainly don't know.
Flaws and all is easily the coolest president we've ever had. And like I said, with this whole Trump, presidency, I think it's pushing people even more. It makes them look even better because of what's going on with it.
They're like, holy shit! We had y'all.
People
it's only 8 years. We gotta change that rule. You gotta come back. You're so young. We need you.
Trump was the best thing that happened to Obama, to be honest.
Fam. Oh, that's hilarious.
It's just kind of the bar of there were certain things Obama did that people called unpresidential, like when he wore a tan suit that time, or when he he did.
Then you got this guy.
He met one time with someone who was on a YouTube channel, and they found some dumb video the YouTube channel person had done, and that was supposedly beneath the dignity of the office, and it's just that horse is so far out of the barn at this point that
Michelle.
You might as well not even
sleeveless dress on.
Oh yeah,
when Michelle wore a sleeveless dress, and now we got Melania Trump.
It's nothing.
We're okay, you guys were upset and up in arms about that.
There has been nothing better for the post look at the Obama presidency than Trump presidency, for sure.
Yeah,
you look at things very differently. So there was this art article. I don't know if you saw this, Doris, but a man might have just found a genuine original Picasso painting at a thrift store. In UK, a guy he was at a thrift sale and he liked the painting so much, but he thought it was fake, and he ended up spending around $293 for it. But the more that they kind of looked at it and examined it, people are starting to believe that it is an actual Picasso painting that can be worth millions of dollars.
Are the Picassos not all accounted for? I would have thought, I mean, I don't know a lot. This is not my wheelhouse. I don't know a lot about this, about fine art, but I know that I figured that there are people out there who can authenticate the stuff and who you would think know that they
and
be able to
these
tell
people,
the difference.
And these are the people who are saying that they are starting to become of the belief that this is the actual Picasso work, original work. So it could be worth as much as $130 million or more.
Well, because Picasso has a foundation. There's the whole Picasso museum. There's there's like two different, like, I think
there's one in Paris.
agencies or like groups, like boards that work for Picasso still. So like they're gonna figure this shit out because yeah. And if it's real, that's the come up of the year.
Can you imagine spending $300 in a thrift store like a real Picasso?
Are you kidding me? Nah, dog. I would retire. Well, I wouldn't retire, but I would like.
You could sell it for at least $100
like
million. That's insane.
Yeah.
Fam, if that's a lost Picasso, fam,
It'd be
I'm
more
not
than
even
that
gonna
for sure.
sell that for probably like 5 years. I'm gonna like wait till they're like, oh yeah, the lost Picasso. He got the lost Picasso, and then put it out on. Actually, there's a lot of like buzz. He could just put it out on Christie's or on Sotheby's now and probably catch a good 50 mil, 75, just for the hype.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, because like it's like basically if it's validated,
I mean,
lost gem. So the story behind it is even more alluring. Except depending, they might find some other story behind it. There might be, some paperwork that goes back, like 70 years that shows where the shit was like purchased and like what happened to that family or some shit. You never know.
Yeah.
It could uncover some dirt. You never know. That's why I'm like,
that shit makes me want to go to the thrift store though.
It does make me want to go to the thrift store right now for sure. Hell yeah. That's actually happened a lot. Like, remember that show, Antique Road or whatever it was?
Antique Road
yeah,
show.
where they yeah. That shit is crazy. Like how sometimes people would just like be like, yeah, this thing, I just wanted to find out how much it was worth. And then, oh, well, this.
I just don't like collecting enough shit. I think that I'd be able to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the person who bought it had to be at least an art lover of sorts to appreciate that it was like actually handmade. So he was like, oh, it was probably
he thought it was a copy. He just thought it was like
real
a good
painting
copy or something,
Yeah, I mean, it's not that hard to make a similar looking Picasso, but like an actual Picasso is different.
So it wasn't like Thomas Kincaid where Picasso like he taught people to imitate him, or it's not.
Nah, because the problem with
like
Picasso's style was it was just like gestural, so it was like it was just one motion. So like you couldn't really just like he just put his hand down and then moved and did this, and that was like the end. Like
right.
Sometimes like so like to get it to copy you literally just have to practice the shapes that he was doing and just be confident enough to move your hand that way.
Right.
And make the actual strokes, because it was really just about him being confident in what he's thinking about and just doing it with like a firm just thing. So that's the thing. If you see like little brush strokes with like smaller brushes and stuff, you can always tell the difference because like certain artists don't use certain types of brushes. So like all those things factor in. Yeah,
I would not know.
Pigments, like what was accessible. Sometimes new paint has different stuff in it and stuff like that. So they're gonna test all that shit.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Shit's going real deep.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, they're gonna X-ray it. Like it's like all this shit. It's gonna be crazy. But for that much money, fuck yeah, do all that shit.
Do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I don't mind. Do what you need.
Take your time. So, I kind of talked about this with Doris, and you kind of mentioned last night, I think, or yesterday, When They See Us.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
I told you I was going to watch it. I was going to finish it, but I told Doris that I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this show. I'll be honest with you.
I started like right. I didn't know that it came out the day it came out, but I just happened to go to Netflix and be like, "Oh, this show! I remember this was supposed to come out. Let me watch it." And then we started watching it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is the 13th show." I was like, "Shit, this is about to get intense." And then it just got really good because it was like so gripping.
Oh, it was really good,
and like
but
really well done.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to finish it.
But then it was like too well done for me. I was like, "Oh shit." This is like, this is like real life. Like, this isn't like everyone's okay at the end, like we kind of know what happens. Yeah. I mean, So it's like, I don't know, it felt awkward, like watching people's lives when they're like outside still, you know,
It's
like,
very
and
tough.
I don't even know if their lives are
Very
like
tough
have
watch.
recouped yet.
Yeah. So you mentioned 13th. Funny fact about that movie, I am in it. You can see me
What?
there's footage of me in this movie. It was you might remember during the 2016 campaign, Bill Clinton came to Philadelphia and he got in an argument with a protester.
Yeah.
And I happened to be standing next to the protester, so you can. And I was on like all the network news shows that day because
I hope you're getting royalties.
I know I if I ever meet Ava DuVernay, I'll be sure to mention that to her. But yeah, they're like 45 minutes in the movie. There I am. There's my head next to this woman.
That's awesome.
And it was a really interesting story because it was like
that
was like the only campaign thing that I was there as a reporter. It was like the only campaign thing during that whole election that I went to, and it happened to like make national news. That this like I was there really early, and this woman next to me, I kind of had a hunch she was planning something because she was carrying signs and she was sort of hiding, and she kept making comments under her breath like that she was going to confront Bill Clinton, and she did, and he completely took the bait and said what he should have said. So that was the whole thing. But
right.
It's funny. I'm gonna go watch it.
Yeah. So
check for that specific scene. I need a timestamp.
Yeah, I'll. I remember. I have the exact one written down somewhere. I can pass it on to you. But so yeah, when They See Us, I thought it was very well done. I really I mean I know the story because there was I remember I lived in New York for I guess when they were exonerated, or maybe it was when they were going to be exonerated. But like even when I was a kid, I remember the Central Park jogger case, and I remember there was this case where this woman was raped, and it was a whole. I remember a big part of the story was that they didn't reveal her name. She was just the Central Park jogger, and she testified in court, and the people were convicted, and then it came out a while later. Oh yeah, they didn't do it. This other guy confessed, and they all went to jail for a really long time for something they didn't do.
14 years.
So and some of them got it. Some of them had gotten out of jail. Like their sentence was over.
About like 7 years.
Yeah.
A couple got out for 6 or 7.
And then they ended up settling with I think it was the city of New York. For
1 year, 1 day is too much.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, day, 1 year, like
it's a very hard thing to watch, even if it wasn't.
It's very difficult.
And I would not
watch.
begrudge anyone saying that they weren't up to watching it. That's understandable. But it was a really. I thought it was a very well done film, filmmaking wise. No, Ava DuVernay did Selma, which is a film that I thought was fantastic. Like it was
I know that song. I think that movie doesn't get enough credit. Like I feel like that was kind of slept on. It was big, but it wasn't as big. Like it didn't win any awards that year.
Well, it got a couple. That was the whole big controversy at the time because it got a couple Oscar nominations, but not as many as it probably should have, and that was the whole.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it had to do with the strategy of it by the studio wasn't that great in terms of
they didn't promote it.
They put it out. I mean, it was eligible for the Oscars, but the release date was in February because they wanted it to be, or in January because they wanted it to be MLK weekend. So, but it ended up because they put it out so late, not enough people saw it, and that part of that had to do with it. But I mean, what I loved about Selma, in addition to just it told a great story about Martin Luther King, but it showed him as his political skills.
Mm-hmm.
Like it showed him, being a strategist, and the Harvey Milk movie was kind of similar. It did that as well. And the other thing that was impressive about that movie was that they didn't have the rights to use any of his speeches, so they basically had to write fake Martin Luther King speeches that sounded like real Martin Luther King speeches, and they did, which was pretty. That's probably a pretty hard thing to do, and they did that well. Now,
oh yeah, for sure.
Now that was great, and 13th, aside from my being in it, I thought was well done too. Her last movie was A Wrinkle in Time, which just was not. It didn't work at all. Like that was just. That
movie was weird.
It was really weird, and it was.
I watched it,
and it's probably what it's a children's. I remember reading that when I was a kid, the book, and I remember it's one of those things that's probably kind of unfilmable. Like it's not really. It's not really a story for cinema, and she tried anyway, and it just kind of didn't really work. And I remember thinking at the time, it's okay. You can. A lot of great directors have made a bad movie that flopped, and that's all right. And it doesn't mean that she's done. And thankfully, I mean, this was a very the Central Park 5 movie was, or I guess it's not a movie, it's a miniseries. Was very. It's very ambitious and a very It was a big swing, but I thought it was good, and I haven't heard much negative about it. I think most people who watched it,
I mean,
have liked it.
It's been so well received. I would say that Linda Fairstein, who's the main prosecutor in all this, has had her world kind of flipped upside down because of it. Like, she's had to leave social media. She just got dropped by her publisher. She had to step down from her position on their college board. Like, so I would say it's been pretty well received because people's outcry after seeing it has been pretty loud and pretty strong, and generally all on the same kind of side that this was a really fucked up case and situation that should have never gone this way. And
right.
Like I said, it's really good. It's just really hard to watch. Like, I knew all the details before. I already knew kind of the case and everything, but watching it like this is like a whole different experience.
Watching it like in real time, like stuff happening,
like picturing
is
it,
like
actually
heart-wrenching. It's like really heart-wrenching.
It's really close to home, so it's like really hard to watch. And the kid actors on there are really good, amazing. Like really good. And so I'll probably get around to it, eventually.
I have to finish it, right?
I'll have to finish it eventually. It's probably be piece by piece. I don't think I just watched it all for it.
And you know who was playing Linda Fairstein in it? It was Felicity Huffman.
No.
Who's that?
Oh. Felicity Huffman from the college admissions scandal, who's having an even worse month than Linda Fairstein. And it might be the last thing she ever acts in, so enjoy her while you can. But but I mean, look, I think Linda Fairstein, she's had 20 years. I mean, I don't know if she became famous because of this case or just from being a prosecutor in New York. I'm sure there were other. I don't remember where
this
I first
was
heard her name.
a big part of why she became so well.
But I mean, she had enough time. I mean, she's had a 20-year career as a best-selling author, maybe probably more than 20 years. Like, as a best-selling author, she's probably gets speaking engagements. I mean, she's had all that for all this time.
Because of
if she loses that now, I mean, she still has all that money, and she's still, that's.
She's like, all right.
I don't feel too bad for her. Yeah.
Forced retirement, thanks. Like, like.
Yeah, 30 years, something like that. So it's. I don't know. It's really good. Just really, really tough watch. I want to know what you guys out there listening and watching. If you've seen When They See Us, what you guys think about it? Have you been able to finish it? Just let us know in the comments where this goes. So we're gonna get to our main topic: greatest TV series of all time. Especially since Game of Thrones just ended. Kind of really wanted to. We were really just thinking about where Game of Thrones would kind of rank among my favorite series of all time. And here's the rules. Mm-hmm. We aren't doing like sitcoms, and shows have to be more than 2 seasons at least, and stuff like that. So those are like the main rules. And other than that, we kind of each have our own opinions about certain shows. Yeah. And then we're going to kind of try to come together like some sort of consensus type of list. Top 5, top 10, not sure.
Word.
So I guess I'll just start it off. So I think I can consensually say that we all agree that Breaking Bad is on the list.
Yes.
I don't know, man.
The list of the
top. That shit's on the list.
Flamed right now.
I put it in the top 10. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely in my list.
That is. Everybody who knows me knows that is my favorite show of all time, hands down, like no question. This is. I don't think I need to explain to anybody why I feel the way or the history about it. It is
only those
everything that it is hyped to be for me.
No, yeah. Honestly, I don't see how. Like when I look at how shows like run, just like the protagonists and the antagonists, if their characters are amazing, and then like the biggest part is how it ends. How does the series end? That's my biggest thing. How does it end? And Breaking Bad ended. And well, perfectly. That was like the smoothest. Like they wrote it like poetry. It was like it just fell together like very well. Yeah.
I remember when it was still going, when it was 5th season coming up, people were asking, is this really going to be the last season? The numbers are so high, it's so popular right now, you can extend it for at least 3 more seasons if you wanted to.
Right.
They made a strong stance that no, they wanted to tell the story. They wanted to tell, and that they were going to end it when they wanted to end it. And I think taking that choice is obviously very hard to kind of cut off something that is such a big property like that, But in terms of the story and the integrity of the story, it was the perfect time to do it.
Well, that's also what Lost did, and that's what Lost did, and that's what Game of Thrones did, and no one was, not many people were happy with either of those. I mean, they gave themselves a specific end date, and they said, okay, this is what we're going to plan it towards. And one thing that was, if you've read much about Breaking Bad and like interviews with the creator, was they didn't have the ending in mind all along. They didn't even have the ending in mind with like a year left. Like I think, they kind of thought, okay, we're going to have Hank find out at the end of the second to last season. But when they did the teaser, when you see that he has the machine gun in his car, and it's
full spoilers for everybody on all these shows we're going to be talking about.
I figure you probably know how Breaking Bad ends. It feels but
you had to have seen them. It doesn't matter. Forget spoilers. Like go watch these after we talk.
I just still gotta give the warning. Somebody's gonna complain. But full spoilers for everybody on all the shows we're gonna be talking about.
But what's interesting with all the, especially the anti-hero type shows, the Breaking Bad, the Sopranos. If the heroes or the main character is a criminal, you kind of have to make a decision. Okay, is he gonna die? Is he gonna go to jail? Is he gonna completely get away with it? Is he gonna? Or in the Sopranos case, just no ending at all, or at least they don't reveal exactly what happens. But with
we definitely don't talk about that one.
Breaking Bad and another show, Sons of Anarchy, had pretty much the exact same ending, which was that he dies, but not before getting revenge on all of his enemies and making sure his children are taken care of financially and going out the exact way he wants to go. So I guess
he went out on his own terms, and the guy who you kind of started out hating, Aaron Paul's character, became kind of the hero of the show. They kind of flip-flopped, their roles. So it was, I just thought it was just really brilliant, like writing and storytelling, and the way they build on each and every episode for every season. Like everything just
when
keeps
Jesse was driving away at the end, that was so like I almost wanted to cry when Jesse got away. The Hank reveal, like when Hank was killed, that was such a my god! Yeah. When Hank was killed, that was crazy. And Hank was a guy you kind of like for me, didn't want to die. I liked Hank, but I never really liked Hank. He was kind of annoying of a character. Yeah. But then once he started to kind of piece things together after he had like the shootout with the people, you kind of have to see like the real side of him, and like, oh, this guy's like really like a genuine like good person, and then once you start figuring that out, and then like you really that like made me really invested in him the way I was never really invested in before. And then when you get invested in him, he has to die, and like the whole thing with Walt, he's like, for somebody so smart, you're so stupid. Like the whole scene was just incredible. Well,
the last episode of Breaking Bad was the night of my sister's wedding, so I ended up watching it. I ended up watching it on an iPad in a hotel room at like 1 a.m. Because like I think it occurred to me like a month or two ahead of like, oh crap, the finale is that. Oh, that's
can't miss it, man. Sweet. It was that good. It was must see TV.
Yeah, I was on this road trip in California for like 2 weeks. Like my other friend got married the week before, so I was like, all the final Breaking Bad episodes, I was like watching in hotel rooms or whatever. So there was one where I remember I watched one like when I was stuck in the Vegas. This is like the season before. I was like stuck in the Vegas airport for a night, and I was like, I might as well watch Breaking Bad.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I'll get you. I'll let you guys throw out the show you guys want to talk about.
So I'm gonna go with Twin. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks, yes. That is. Twin Peaks. I loved the original Twin Peaks when I was a kid, and then they 25 years later brought it back for this 18 episode weird ass uncut David Lynch thing where it didn't entirely make sense plot wise. They brought up all these like little loose ends that they never had any intention to paint off, but it was just the original Twin Peaks just took television to a level that it had never reached up to that point, and never would again until stuff like Sopranos came along. And I wrote a piece about this I think last year about how just like Twin Peaks has the greatest fandom of anything. Like there's this obsessive group of fans who have loved the show and have gotten into the show over the years as they've, people have kind of come of age and gotten into it and discovered it. And then even though they had no new content whatsoever for more than 20 years, except for like DVD releases or whatever. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, there's a new show. And just fan theories are usually stupid, but the fan theories about Twin Peaks were all great. And like people had these like complicated explanations of what was going on, and I don't know if they were right or wrong, but it was all just like wonderful stuff.
I'm conflicted because I recognize Twin Peaks as this really important show in kind of TV history, and I like the atmosphere, and I love everything, specifically like the atmosphere and the aesthetics and everything, like the visual stuff about that David Lynch style. But I didn't necessarily love the show itself as much. Right. Mm-hmm. Especially the new kind of revival thing, part of it. But I still like recognize how important it is. So for me, it would make the list just off of kind of how important it is for the history of like TV and stuff.
Yeah, it's just
I definitely feel that important aspect. Yeah, it definitely echoes for sure. I just never personally, I never caught on to it, so like I can't say for sure. But I definitely felt it, so I know it has to be good.
Well, it was just so shocking that something that weird and something that like that specifically odd sensibility just existed and was made and caught on and was popular. I mean, it had mainstream popularity for like 3 months when it started, and then it was a cult thing from there on out. And I don't know what the ratings were for the Showtime one, but they probably weren't very good. And so, but it was just it was a small cult of people that loved it, and that's just how it was for its entire existence.
I think my opinion and perception was probably a little tainted because I was like watching X-Files before.
Oh yeah,
I watched anything from Twin Peaks, so I was kind of expecting something similar, like that. But it's its own wholly thing, even though they have like kind of similarities and stuff. So I think my perception was probably tainted by watching like X-Files and all the shows that came after it than watching Twin Peaks.
Right.
Yeah.
But I like the weird type of content and stuff. So and it is really important for TV. So for me, it's on the list.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. Those are both solid. I'm gonna pick one that, I feel like Dario agrees with me on this. With the Mad Men. Gotta go with Mad Men. Mr. Don Draper.
Didn't like the show. I was not a big fan of the show, I'll be honest with you.
Huh.
What?
No.
That's crazy. I was hooked on that show.
Like that.
When it was out originally, I wasn't that into it. But like I said on this podcast before, I like to watch things in full. So like I literally waited till the last season was coming out, just like this Game of Thrones shit. And I watched all of it and then caught up to when the Mad Men was coming out with the finale. So basically,
now granted, I never finished it, and I only caught random episodes. I never really sat down and watched.
Oh my god.
Continuity.
You have to, dog. That's like that show's great because like you get to see this development.
Yeah, I watch
of like just it's so interesting, politics and camaraderie and just like family life and just like I don't know, it's so interesting. Just
I'm just not in love with that time period. I think that's another reason why.
Well, it was what I liked about that show was it got more 60s like it goes through the 60s and it just becomes more 60s-ish as it goes on. The first couple seasons, everyone's in suits, everyone has the same haircut, everybody's it's all just conformity like that. And then as it comes on, the hair gets longer, the beards get shaggier, and there's the clothes get more colorful.
The bell bottoms start to come out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then there's just more and more Vietnam references as it goes on. I mean, it was really. I've kind of always meant to. I watched it as it aired, and I watched it. I never really rewatched it. I just kind of watched the season once. I've kind of been meaning to go back through and watching that again. I remember a buddy of mine, like, I think as the final season was airing, my friend just decided to binge the entire series, and he's like texting me questions. I'm like, he's like, that Sal guy, he's gay, right? I'm like, yeah, he is. you're not really, you're supposed to know, but they're not supposed to know, and then that's
yeah.
So
right. But that was the whole thing back then with like, being out in the workplace and like he's in the art department, there's all these things about the show that are so nuanced that were like, that I thought was great. Yeah. I just thought that the conversation in the show, like even though they didn't have the conversation, I liked how they did.
Category right now.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say there's two shows that I'm pretty sure we all agree on, and one is The Wire.
Mm.
Yep.
I don't think we need to go super deep in this one. It's pretty well known and I think piece to piece. There's so many elements and parts of it that it just captures that whole time period and that whole like environment just so well, and the characters are so like human and real that it's you really start to relate to a lot of those people, even though they're living a crazy like lifestyle. And there are some slow parts, but season 1 for me is one of the best seasons of any show ever made.
So season 4 is my favorite with the kids. That I think is the best that I ever got.
Yeah.
And I love all the seasons; they're all good. 5 is less good than the others, but
that's what I was about to say. Was season 4 was great, and it dipped for a second, and I was like confused.
Yeah, 5 was
took a break.
The whole newspaper thing was David Simon kind of wanting to settle some scores with people he was in the newspaper industry with, and making some points about the way things were in the newspaper industry, 25 years earlier that weren't really in play as much now. But I mean, I'll forgive that just because it was. It was. I mean,
overall, it was
just that show. The dialogue was great. The acting was great. The characters were great. It really saw a lot of things coming in terms of like police, in terms of just the breakdown of American institutions. It really had things to say about that at a time before that kind of became conventional wisdom. So.
American inner cities, man.
Yeah.
And Idris Elba basically started his whole thing. And that's probably why I liked those first seasons so much, because I thought he was so fucking good in there.
Yeah. For sure.
For sure. Because
he does not last American very long. The Sopranos is another one I think we all agree.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
for me, it's basically started this whole wave of TV series. Yes, like a lot of people. Steven did a whole piece on it, so you should read about that. You should definitely check out his piece he did on the whole. He kind of lightened my opinion about the ending a little bit, but I still don't like the ending.
Well, if you didn't read my piece, I basically think that, like, I'm not defending the ending necessarily, but I do think that we're supposed to not know. And if they wanted us to think that he died or didn't die, they would have conveyed that he died or didn't die. I think the idea is supposed to be that he...
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, the idea...
I get what they wanted, but as a viewer and as a fan who's been invested in it for so many seasons, you want to know what the fuck is happening. Like, you don't want that.
But why did they convey it? Convey some shit. And let me just think that way. Like, give me a direction. I had no direction. I don't like ending something with no direction.
Like, for me, like, it's kind of like Inception. I don't know if you've seen Inception. Yeah. I'm sure you've seen Inception, where the ending, it's spinning, and it kind of leaves the door open where it's ambiguous, but at the same time, you see it kind of wobble a little bit, so it does give you kind of a definitive answer, but then people are still kind of not entirely sure about it. For me, that is the way you would do an ambiguous ending. Like, it gives you that kind of, you're not entirely sure, but it does imply something.
Yeah.
Some sort of ending that you can walk away kind of satisfied, where this one is literally just a straight fade to black. And it's just like, what the fuck just happened? Did my cable
it's like, wait.
Yeah, that book.
Oh, the episode's over? I was like, oh.
The book that came out earlier this year, The Soprano Sessions by Alan Sepinwall and Matt Zoller Seitz, they just go on for pages and pages arguing about the ending, and then they interview David Chase about the ending, and they have like interviews with David Chase about every chapter. They have long essays about I highly recommend this book if you care about the Sopranos a little bit.
So, regardless of the ending, the rest of the show is it's The Sopranos. I mean, it's
Oh yeah, yeah. So regardless of our gripes,
this all
the nitpicking
kind of series run, like all these series, I think, kind of are a byproduct almost of like The Sopranos and what HBO did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. I
But
feel like Sopranos started just like, developed television series.
Yeah.
Like where
Serious
people
TV.
were like, yeah, exactly. Like not just like sitcoms and kitschy family shows.
Right. Well, I mean, it's.
I think.
Good.
No, go ahead.
I'll go. You go ahead.
No, finish.
Well, I think it's just. It's funny how much everyone looks back on The Sopranos now like it was the most brilliant thing ever, and it was one of the best shows in TV history, I believe. But like, people always complain while it was on. People always complain that not enough people were getting whacked, or that episode was boring, or that was too weird. That whole episode had a dream sequence, and that sucks. Why don't we get back to the mob stuff where I just want to see Tony Soprano shoot people, and that's what the show's about. That's never what the show's about. It was always about him and his mother and him and his wife and, his depression and, the stuff he talks about with the psychiatrist. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
People were always remembering a show that didn't actually exist, that they,
It's not a mob show.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it really holds up well. If you go back, if you watch it now, it's like, it doesn't feel dated. It doesn't feel, the dialogue's still as great as it was, and it's one of those shows, and Billions is a show that's on now, which is kind of the same thing, where like, I'll watch a scene and I'll be so taken with the dialogue that I'll rewind it and watch the scene again. There'll be scenes with like Tony and Uncle Junior talking to each other, which just like, wow, just like the back and forth there was great. I'm gonna watch that again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it deserves all the praise it's gotten for sure.
Yep.
It's the OG, so it's on the list. My last one I would say is, well, before Les Mouse is, I think we're all consensus that Game of Thrones, despite its troubles at the end, is still one of the greatest shows of all time.
I don't know about greatest of all time. I think greatest of the present day, I would say. I mean, I'm not gonna... And I wasn't as down on it as a lot of people. I thought, there were certain things about the last season that I disagreed with. But, I mean, and it had a lot of great moments, and it had... It was an achievement. It was like... There's been nothing in television history on that scale before, in terms of...
I think in terms of specifically fantasy type of television and scale and...
Yeah.
It's basically almost movie. It was almost movie quality at that point.
It was like when Avatar came out, like it changed the game.
Some of my favorite moments in TV history to have ever happened on that show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, like there's just stuff they did that like I spent in a television series, a TV series, not a movie. Like that's what's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like there's movies that don't pull off some of that stuff.
But I mean, it wasn't quite as, in terms of budget, in terms of scale, it wasn't quite at this level in the first season. I mean, it's still a very expensive show.
True.
But like, I think they kind of had to, once they knew it was a hit, and once they knew that it
was a smash,
it was such a cash cow for HBO. They kind of, I think the big battle, and I think the Blackwater one, I think was the end of the second season. They shot it at night, and they had a lot of stuff happen off screen because even in the first season, there's whole battles that are off screen.
Yeah,
like some of the stuff with Robb Stark when they're fighting, a lot of that stuff was off screen because they didn't,
pretty much all of Robb Stark stuff was off screen.
Yeah.
You just hear about him like doing, he won
Right.
here, or he took this.
Exactly,
You never actually see it.
So, I mean, later on in the series, they had a bigger budget to work with, especially in the last season where they were just like that episode with the White Walkers, which I thought they should have made it so you could actually see what the hell was going on. But they that probably cost more than most movies this year. Whatever, I don't know.
Battle of the Bastards is one of the greatest war battle sequences I've ever seen.
Yeah. That gave me like Braveheart vibes. Like it was just so good. Like I was just like, oh, this battle is crazy. That was lit.
So Steven's a maybe. I'll put in the maybe since Steven's not consensus. greatest list.
Well, the other thing is, like, all these other shows have been off the air for years, and their legacy is kind of secure.
Give it a little time, yeah.
I mean, Game of Thrones, it's only been a couple weeks. So.
I have a hard time seeing Game of Thrones not kind of having that type of legacy, though. It's one of those first of its kind, really.
Right. I suppose. So,
which brings me to Walking Dead, which I was going to put on here, but I think it's just kind of gone completely off the rails, and it was kind of first of its kind, too. I just don't think it's going to have that same remembrance that Game of Thrones has.
Yeah, I bailed on that several years ago, and I don't. I've heard occasionally that it's gotten better.
I don't even know what season they're on.
I'm just waiting until it ends, and then I'll just catch back up and finish it all at once. But it definitely lost its way.
Oh, you're gonna try my approach?
Yeah, I just lost interest. I just didn't think it was.
Nah, you ain't a real fan. You ain't a real Walking Dead fan. You ain't keeping up.
Well, at this point, I bet if I turn it on, it's like none of the people are on it who were on it last time I watched it. So I won't know what the hell's going on. I mean, I'm sure it's the way it always was when they think they have peace for part of an episode, and then the zombies attack them, and then they fight the zombies. It's just that over and over again, right? I mean, what else happens besides that? I mean,
it's the case of not having a ending in mind and not having a clear kind of point story-wise to go.
Well, that's kind of how I feel.
It's becoming too
about
sitcom-y.
One other show that I have in mind,
which is
Lost.
Oh yeah.
Okay, it's on my list.
What do you think about Lost?
It made my list.
Huh?
It made my list because.
Oh, it did?
I don't know if you remember. We were in high school with Doris at the time when Lost was really big, and it was like.
Yeah.
It was like a phenomenon at the time. Like, hey, kids in school literally
for real
talking about Lost and the theories about Lost, and literally just having
that was like the only show we watched with our parents.
Conversations about it, like
yeah.
And I mean, up until again,
what do you think that sound in the woods is? Like, what do you you know like?
Yeah. It didn't really land, the ending and stuff, but I think as a series, it was still right up there for me.
So for years, oh god.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, kind of like the hype of like Game of Thrones. That's how I felt at the time when Lost was out. Like, kind of just like, oh shit, like this.
I was like, well, I have to watch it because everybody's fucking talking about it all the goddamn time.
Yeah. Well, for years I didn't watch it, and everyone I worked with just talked about it nonstop, and then I think I caught up on it like before the final season, just in time for like everyone to turn against the show. This isn't After years and years of everyone talking about how great it was, I'm finally watching it in real time. Everyone's like, "Oh, that sucked. What the hell is that about?" So
you're not a fan.
Yeah. So no, I mean, Lost didn't. I mean, I never really. Yeah, it was kind of. I admit that was kind of a weird way to experience the show, but yeah. So it never really. I never really saw that show in the pantheon the way the others were. But
the hype was real.
Yes. Another show I would suggest is Justified. Did you guys ever watch that?
I did.
That's on my list.
Is Raylan? He's the
Raylan Givens,
Marshall? Yes.
He's the U.S. Marshal. So it's him and Walton Goggins, who's a criminal, and they're kind of.
Walton Goggins is phenomenal in that show.
Yeah, he was so good at it. He was so funny. The dialogues are good. It was like, I mean, it was in Kentucky. It's like in the middle of Appalachia. It's in this town, and it's like
5 seasons, I think.
5 seasons or 6 seasons. 6 seasons, and like and this was also one where the second to last season was really bad. Like Michael Rappaport played the villain, and he had a southern accent, and it was really terrible.
It was not good.
But then the last season was great,
and
it had great guest stars. It had great
Michael Rappaport with the southern.
Yes,
it did a lot of.
Michael Rappaport played in Kentucky.
Yeah, or I think Florida.
Yes. Imagine that.
Gross.
It was gross.
It's like the first season had a bunch of Case of the Week episodes, which I thought were great, and then they never really did that after that. And it was just more like season-long arcs, which were all good, but it was a great show. And they used a lot of actors who were on Deadwood. I don't know if you guys watch Deadwood, either the movie or the original show.
I've seen a few.
I keep hearing about it though. One of my coworkers is raves about Deadwood.
Yeah, well, they just had the movie, which they were gonna do back when the show first went off there, but they and the movie I thought was really well done. I mean, I don't know. Deadwood's another one of those shows, kind of like Fleabag, or I guess kind of like Justified, where I don't know many people that watch it. It's just like a show that I
Right.
hear about because TV critics like it and recommend it, and then I watch it, and I'm just like, well, this
That's
is a
an
great
HBO show,
And then
right?
no one, Justified was FX. Yeah, Deadwood was HBO. Deadwood was HBO and it was on.
Yeah,
and then they
okay.
just and the movie was on.
For me, Justified is on my list. I know it's already on my list, so I don't know.
And that's another one I've been meaning to go back and watch all of because it was so enjoyable. And there was Elmore Leonard, who was a famous novelist who he wrote a lot of books that were made into movies, like Get Shorty was him, Out of Sight was him, and Justified was based on like a short story of his. And he didn't really have. I don't think he ever wrote for I don't think he had anything to do with the show directly, but it was definitely in the spirit of his work, just like the way the characters talked and the dialogue and stuff like that. So it was just, that's a show that I was just one of my favorites ever. I really love it.
Oh, Steven, since I got you on the line, I want to ask you about Hannibal. How do you feel?
I've never watched it. I never watched Hannibal.
The television series?
No, I know Silence of the Lambs, but
I tried.
I never watched. I've heard
episodes
good things
to
about it. It's just no, never watched Hannibal.
I gave it 3 episodes to Reese.
Damn. You did? You actually watched 3? You couldn't get
3.
into it?
Couldn't get into it.
Everybody says it's great.
Wow.
It's just I know it's
But not even good weird. It's just weird.
I know it's super gory and really creepy and stuff.
Yeah,
but
it's a little over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's over the top because they're giving the backstory. The first season
does not feel like Silence of the Lambs.
That's because that's not what it is. That's not.
It's called Hannibal.
You got it. I know, but the whole story.
So
is
if
about
I want it similar to Silence of the Lambs. Like I don't want something.
Well, let me tell you.
Like I want a TV
fan
similar.
I know, but this is the problem. Yeah, but let me
don't
give
call
you
it
the
Hannibal.
problem.
The
problem is
like.
All right. The problem is that you already knew about Hannibal, so you wanted to see.
So
Hannibal
don't give me.
Hannibal
Don't
shit
call it Hannibal, and then give me something that's not Hannibal. That's all I'm saying.
Fam. All right.
Do you agree with me?
I guess, but like we're gonna act like we just said. Like these other shows don't start out that crazy.
Suspense thriller movies ever made just didn't happen.
In terms of writing and shit, that shit is cold blooded. That shit is like. I feel like there's a whole lot of shit. Like, if you actually watch the series, like, it's literally season 2 and season 3 are the movie shit. Like, the Red Dragon and the whole, like, it's just crazy to see a movie like Hannibal spread out into, like, 10 or 12 episodes and, like, actually dove into.
Like it was
the problem. No, what I'm saying is the first half of the first season is to show you how Hannibal's existing in the world by not being the focus of the story. Thumbs down, I guess, Hannibal. But like,
don't call it Hannibal. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, he's manipulating the main character. He's the doctor. It's about him. But what I'm saying is, you gotta understand. I guess, fam. Game of Thrones, in terms of writing and how the first season and the last season ended, I could put Hannibal as a show up against the first season and the last season of Game of Thrones.
No, last season we've already talked about it. Last season Game of Thrones was handled extremely poorly. The pacing was absolutely trash. But that doesn't make me a fan of Hannibal. I'm sorry, like it doesn't work.
What about the production value of the first season of Game of Thrones?
Bro, I hear you on Hannibal. Maybe one day I'll actually give it a chance. But right now, after 3 episodes, I could not get into it.
Did you guys watch? Did you guys ever watch The Shield?
I've seen a few.
It's really good.
I've seen a few.
It's like it's kind of like a revisionist cop show where it's they don't even try to act like he's a good guy. It's just, or at least the team of them, that they're just like these, completely amoral, criminal, corrupt cops. And at the end of the very first episode of the series, they kill one of the other cops. And that just kind of is a shadow over the entire series, which I think was 6 seasons, maybe even 7. And
I thought it was interesting.
That was FX, right?
FX, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first big FX original series, I think.
Fully grabbed me.
Yeah.
Actually,
I thought it was interesting.
Rescue Me was.
Was Rescue Me before that?
Yeah.
Was it? I guess.
Because I was watching Rescue Me already.
Oh, yeah, you
might be. And then I
right.
remember S.H.I.E.L.D. being rolled out.
I think Nip Tuck was before that too, right?
Yeah, Nip Tuck was way before that.
Okay, yeah, I guess I remember that. But, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Nip Tuck?
Okay, so, I mean, one, I'm sure you guys maybe not huge fans, but I have Sex in the City on the list.
Yeah, it was an important show for sure.
I do, because as a kid, my mother and stepmother were huge fans of the show, so I would end up actually watching the show. And I'd be lying if I said I did not actually start getting into the show a little bit. I never actually finished the entire series, but I can see why it was so big for what it was.
Well, I lived in New York during the heyday of that show at a time when all of the women I knew watched that show and were obsessed with that show and wanted to live their lives in accordance with that show. So I watched it, of course, and I remember I would run into them filming it when I lived in New York. I would, any restaurant or shop that got mentioned on the show would mob the next day. That was just, it was a very interesting moment with that show, and it was a groundbreaking show. It was about women wanting to have sex and talking about sex, and it was very influential. There's no Broad City without Sex and the City.
Massively influential.
There's no all these other shows would not have existed if not for Sex and the City.
So I think I'd be remiss if it did not make the list.
Right. I mean, if I'm making my own list, I'm going to mention stuff like Seinfeld and Cheers, and I know those are both mega popular shows, but those were just two extremely important shows to me when I was young. I know Seinfeld. Yeah. I was obsessed with Seinfeld when it was first on, and I was like probably in 8th or 9th grade when Seinfeld was first popular. And
we just wanted to kind of disqualify those type of shows.
Oh, okay, yeah, we're not doing
get into
right.
A real deep rabbit hole.
Okay.
Because Martin would be near the top of my list, along with like Fresh
For
Prince
real,
and
that'd
all
be
that,
number
and,
one.
Chappelle Show, and it could be never ending if we go to just straight TV shows. But like in terms of like actual like story arc driven series,
right,
it's kind of what we kind of tried to limit to, because that's a deep rabbit hole. If we start talking about like Seinfeld and Martin and all that.
Let me tell you something. Martin Lawrence had a movie role this year in the movie The Beach Bum, which I think I wrote about for your site, right? It was
you did.
with McConaughey. Yeah, Martin Lawrence plays his buddy, and he's in this movie for like 10 minutes, and he's hilarious.
Martin is one of my favorite actors, especially 90s actors ever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go a little weird, a little deep cut here. On my list was two animated shows. One was Samurai Jack, and another one was Death Note.
I don't know those. I know them, but I don't.
Samurai Jack, I thought I was gonna hate, and it turned out to be so epic. I was taken back by Samurai Jack.
So,
because I thought it sounded like Samurai Jack sounds like a joke. So
I'm trying to explain this to Steven. So it's like came out. I don't know when it came out. Recently, like early 2000s.
It came out after Dragon Ball Z was over, so it was like
early 2000s, I think. So it came out early 2000s, and this sort of, it's made by this famous Japanese animator creator, and it was on Cartoon Network, but it was not a Cartoon Network show. It had a clear like adult story arc and themes from front to end, and like it was almost, and the art style and the way it was animated was like super groundbreaking and unique, and it was just unlike anything that had ever really been made, and even since then, like in terms of like animated stuff. And even though it was on Cartoon Network, it was definitely a very like adult oriented type of show before there were all these cartoon animated shows geared towards adults. Like so much so that it got revived, I don't know, 2 years ago, because it never actually got to finish its arc. Then after, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 12 years, so many fans wanted it to be finished that Adult Swim actually brought it back with the creator for the final season to end it on like the
and that was a big deal.
And that season was phenomenal. So for me, Samurai Jack is one of the greatest unsung, like underrated series ever made, even though it's animated.
Right.
Wow.
And Death Note is an anime.
That's interesting. I wasn't even thinking in that territory.
Yeah, and Death Note is an anime that spawned a couple movie on Netflix too, I guess. But it's just one of the
greatest. I don't remember Death Note. I know I watched it. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
I remember it being a movie last year, but I didn't know the whole backstory.
The movie obviously is not even close to the original source material like they ever are, but the actual show is really fucking good.
All right. All right. Well, the last one.
Doing animated.
Okay.
Oh no, go ahead.
Well, the last one on my list that I haven't mentioned is The Leftovers. Did you guys watch that one?
I watched, let's say, the first season and a half.
I thought, well, you didn't see the good part of that. It was
exactly.
I mean, yeah, the first season.
So the parts I saw, I was like, I can't keep doing this to myself.
Well, the entire show was really bleak, but like the first show, it didn't really get into the brilliance until like the second season, and the third season was just off the charts. And I mean, it stayed bleak all along, and I completely understand why it wasn't hugely popular. And again, it's another show where very few people I know actually watch it, but that's another one that was created by Damon Lindelof, who created Lost, and I remember everyone.
That's why I
remember he was really upset that
why I watched it.
Dope.
He was really hurt by how much everyone hated the ending of Lost, so I think he was really determined to stick the landing on Leftovers, and I think he did. And then the funny thing was that a lot of the ideas animated by The Leftovers, which is that what happens if a certain percentage of the world disappears all of a sudden one day, ended up being taken up by Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War.
Oh, I thought it was a really interesting premise, and I loved that it was from the guy who created Lost. But after I watched season 1, I was like, I literally feel like I've gone nowhere in the story or anything. Like, I don't know anything. And I did not enjoy that part at all.
Well, one thing about that show that people just couldn't get past, I don't think, was that it never revealed why everyone disappeared. And it kind of was clear all along that it wasn't going to. That was just part of the mystery.
First season, I was pretty sure. I was like, I don't think he's even going to give us this.
I think they came around and said, this is not what the show's about. It's not about figuring out why they disappeared. It's about the fact that it happened, and this is how the world is.
Don't give me such a compelling mystery. You're not going to tell me that. Then make it something like a little easier to be like, oh, who cares, But
then the same thing happens in an Avengers movie, and exponentially more people see it and engage with the same idea. So there you go.
Then you also have the God of Thunder and a guy who can destroy half the universe fighting. So it's a little different. But I mean, I love the premise. I just felt a little duped because it's from the creator of Lost. Oh, here's this really interesting premise and hook to get you to watch it, and then once you get there, it's not even about. Those things have nothing to really do with the show. Right. And I get you have to get people to watch it, but then like I said, after season half, I was like, I kind of just dropped off and started watching this stuff.
Yeah. Well, lastly, I just want to mention 2 shows. Mm-hmm. And they're both by the same creator, but they both made an epic impact. First one, Weeds.
That was on my list. Such a good fucking show.
Weeds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, where?
I watched. I think I didn't have Showtime.
Damn, I was gonna say
Good.
Oh no, go ahead. I got a little lag, so sorry.
I didn't have Showtime all the time, so I think I had it some seasons and not others. So I watched some of the show, but not anywhere close to all of it. So
I watched all 5. There's 5, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Good fucking show.
Fam, that show got me into online watching TV shows, really. Probably. I think that show was kind of the transition for me.
It's like a dark kind of humor, but it's funny as fuck and it's really good.
Well, I remember when Breaking Bad started, all these people were like, "Oh, it's about a guy who has to sell drugs. So it sounds like Weeds, huh?"
Weeds,
and I'm like,
yes.
Not really, no. Very different.
But Weeds for sure is on my list.
Yeah.
And then the other show was Orange is the New Black.
I like that show, but I'm a couple years behind on it. I haven't watched it I think the 3rd season was the last one I watched. So, I hope to catch up. I think the last season is soon, right? Or is it already over?
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, maybe it's too premature for them. But I know they both had huge impact. I mean, like Orange is the New Black is a thing, you know. Just saying it is a thing. What? Not one episode? That's crazy.
Not a single episode.
Well, that's not Orange is the New Black. Like, Piper's the least interesting character.
I'm confused.
Huh? I lost you there.
Facts. That was painting. That was painful to hear Piper. I mean, watch her the whole time, honestly. Like, I was glad that there were other characters.
I know it's based on her book, but still, like, I didn't think... I never found her all that interesting, and I didn't find her stories very compelling either, especially when Jason Biggs is involved.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad that whole scenario, like, they just stopped doing that. That first season.
Yeah.
Even though it was cool, that was, like, the worst part of the storyline, I think. But that was her storyline to get into jail, so I kind of got it.
Yeah.
To make her look like but whatever.
Right.
It started to get crazy good. Honestly, though, I guess I couldn't put it on the list because in terms of prison shows, Oz would have to come before that easily.
Oz was
Oz would have to be before that.
It got a bit silly at the end, but it was when that show was on, it was on for sure. So that was some good stuff.
Yeah, if you think about it, Oz is legendary.
Yeah.
Like it's a weird show, but it's like one of the greatest shows of all time.
I feel like its legacy hasn't really carried on that well though.
It's still on the HBO. Is it on the HBO streaming channel still? I think it is, right?
Maybe, but I just don't. People don't really look back and talk about Oz in the same way they talk about like Sopranos and other stuff.
Yeah,
that's because it was like worse. Like it was. Well,
even though at the time people talk. I mean, I just don't think its legacy carried on as well as other shows of its ilk.
It is still on HBO Go. I just looked. So if you haven't seen Oz, it's there. So
they're still checking for it.
Yeah, get ready for some very intense prison scenes.
Oh yes.
Yeah, there were some like almost American Me type prison scenes.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and don't watch that movie.
Don't
if
watch
you haven't seen it.
Nah. So I mean, in terms of shows that I think have for sure should be on my list, I already kind of said them. I had a bunch of other runner-ups that are good, but I don't think that should make it, like House of Cards, Daredevil, Black Sails, stuff like that. I don't know if have you guys seen Black Sails?
No.
Not a lot of people have seen that.
I haven't. I've heard about the hype. I don't know anything about it. Really. I don't.
It's like Pirates of the Caribbean, but real.
Huh.
As much as I can say.
Oh, that's cool. Interesting.
It starts out I would say the first 2 seasons aren't that great, but then the last 3 are phenomenal.
I bailed on House of Cards after I think the 3rd season. The first 2 to 3 were really good, and then it just kind of started going little. I don't know. I mean, it was a groundbreaking show in that it was the first major like Netflix prestige show, but the first
season was so good.
Yeah, but then it just kind of, I don't know. I feel like Veep which came out, or I think started around the same time, maybe a little bit after, was like that was a much more of the moment show about politics, even though it was a completely different tone. Like it was a show that, I think Veep is more accurate of a picture of what politics is like, in the sense that everybody's really craven and selfish and immoral, whereas House of Cards tells you that members of Congress are evil because they kill people, which isn't really like, they don't really kill their political opponents. That's not really, there's corruption in Washington, and that's not the reason why there's corruption in Washington, and even beyond the whole Kevin Spacey part of it. Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing where, this is like, I know female journalists who just go apeshit whenever there's any kind of plot about like female journalists sleeping with sources, because most movies and TV shows that have female journalists, that happens, and it's not something.
Right.
women in that profession do not like giving the impression that that's something that is that they do. So,
oh, you mean
because
there's another way they get their sources?
Right, exactly. They call people up just
like all I've ever seen is like that's what's fucked up is that's all that we've ever seen.
I thought that's how you're taught in journalism school.
No,
no,
tends to be frowned upon. Yes.
I mean, otherwise, I think we have a pretty solid list right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and say what I have kind of written down. I want to get this down to 10. So there's Breaking Bad, Twin Peaks, The Wire, The Sopranos, Sex and the City, Samurai Jack, Weeds, Justified, Lost, Game of Thrones, and Mad Men.
That's good. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
So we just have to lose one.
But did you say Weeds?
I did say Weeds. Just have to lose one, and I'm assuming it's going to be Lost.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So the final list looks like this:
Breaking Bad. You almost made it Lost.
Breaking Bad, Twin Peaks, The Wire, The Sopranos, Sex and the City, Samurai Jack, Weeds, Justified, Game of Thrones, and Mad Men.
Mm-hmm. Works for me, yes.
That's a solid list.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not mad at that list.
Not mad at it either.
I think Samurai Jack is a wild card. I think people will look at it weird.
You just gotta watch it, man.
Oh no, I know. I didn't watch the new season. Is the thing. That's the only reason why I'm like.
The new season is so good, bro.
Don't mind me. I gotta switch rooms. I gotta plug my computer.
So, I mean, you just gotta
that's
watch
what I heard. Is that it was amazing and
absolutely the art style, the
catch it.
Story, the off.
Yeah,
bro. It's only like 10 episodes, 30 minutes each. You gotta see that last one.
Mm-hmm. I wish Afro Samurai had more seasons.
Yeah, was it one season? Was it one or two? I think it was one.
I think it was one. If I felt like two, but it's just one. I think they were just like spread out.
That Cowboy Bebop, one season. But yeah. So somehow
one seasoners.
Yeah, somehow that's a possibility. Somehow we managed to come to a pretty consensus list of our top 10 greatest shows, greatest series, narrative-driven series ever made, especially after Game of Thrones just ended. You guys heard us discuss and kind of debate. What did you guys think about the shows that made the list at the end? What do you think should have made the list? What do you think should have made the list? What were some of your favorite series ever made? Let us know in the comments wherever this goes up, wherever you watch us or listen to us. And let's have an ongoing little discussion about this. And I'll probably do a post next week of a official kind of list of what we just did here. But other than that, that's what we wanted to cover in the podcast. So thank you guys for listening and watching us. And thank you, Steven, for joining us as always.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely go onto the site and check out some of his articles. They are phenomenal.
Thank you.
They always do really well. Again, just plug where people can find you.
You can go to, I'm on Twitter, Steven Silver, StephenSilver. You can see my movie reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I write for Splice Today. I write for Philly Voice. I write for various other places. So, and then I have my own podcast called Film Scribes.
Go check them out. Darice, again, ongoing guest. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, comments, topic suggestions, or about this show, past show, or any future shows, you can let us know wherever this goes up, wherever you guys enjoy us. Or you can email us directly at podcast@livinglifefearless.co. If you like any of the gear, again, that we rocking these videos like this shirt right here, or the shirt or hat that Darice is wearing. You can also head to his official site and grab some for yourself. We have a ton going out this summer, and we have a special going on, 35% off the entire store all summer for our record 10 months in a row. But today's day, once again, was June 7th, 2019, and this was our latest episode of the Fearless Show podcast, and we'll be back shortly with more podcasts from the Music Files and the Fearless Show to come, so definitely check back soon. Thank you guys for joining us, and do what, Darice?
Keep living life fearless, y'all. Appreciate it.
Peace.
And thank you again, Steve.
Thank you.